What's up? Welcome to Recovery Revolution Live with me, Brett Morris. He's in his truck, so that's why it's his emoji. And our special guest, Tom Jackson. What's up, Tom?
Yeah. Hey there.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Jason. Hi, Brett. How are y'all?
Awesome, man.
Doing well. I'm gonna mute myself for the most part so you guys don't hear the road noise and stuff, but I'll unmute occasionally and chime in.
It's
Good.
giving me the inspiration to want to go on a road trip, you know?
Oh, I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to
I'm just trying to get home from work, man.
I feel you, dog. I just got home from work and I was rushing to get my paperwork done. I told Tom when we got on here, I'm like, hold on a second. I got to do a little, just like scan 2 pages and send them to my boss.
Hey, you got it done.
Yeah. And now I don't have to worry about nothing after. We just got to worry about talking about recovery and advocacy and all the amazing things that you do, brother.
Well, you too.
Well, you know, podcasting's cool, but you get to go out and to all these awesome events. See, when I get like older, maybe like get to retirement age, I'll be able to think about doing that kind of stuff if I build up a good retirement for myself.
Yeah, and I get jealous when I see some of our other partners in crime going off to, 2 things a month, and I'm lucky and I shouldn't complain. If I get to do 2 or 3 or 4 things a year. But we've got actually you had asked a little bit ago. We've got Faces and Voices of Recovery coming up in June, but even before that, some peers, friends, colleagues, and so on in Virginia, as part of our state. Our SSA, our state agency, Office of Recovery, did a leadership course, and some of the people who did that, including one of our really significant VRAP people, is doing a thing called Year of the Peer 2023 in Virginia, and their conference, 2-day conference in Richmond, is next week.
Awesome.
So we are attending. Unfortunately, our proposal to present wasn't accepted, but Faces and Voices accepted it. So Allison and I are going to get to do it once.
Awesome.
And then today we were talking about a little bit of beginning thoughts of programming for Mobilize and what that might look like, but it's all so preliminary, and I was kind of sort of sworn to secrecy. So
I feel you. That will happen.
It will happen, and it will be fascinating, and it will be interesting, and I'm really looking forward to it. So
nice. So for you guys out there watching, or nobody's watching right now, but when they do, because most of our people view it later. So what he's talking about, Virginia RAP, that's the Virginia Recovery Advocacy Project. Mm-hmm. And that is a group of individuals and anybody can join it, and like you just brainstorm together and you find out from the community what the needs are, and then you try to get boots on the ground, or maybe go change legislation or raise funds to make changes in your community. That's what Recovery Advocacy Project is. And then what he's talking about when he says a proposal to present, he's talking about being a presenter at a conference. So to share some material, share some information with the folks at the conference. Yep. Now, I have no idea about this, and I'm curious about it, Tom. How do you go about doing a proposal to present?
Well, usually the places put up a page on their website. And they pretty much walk you through it. They ask you a bunch of questions, and you really just kind of answer them. They run a page and a half long. Fortunately, the one that Allison Webb and I are doing on peers and allies for Faces and Voices, we proposed it to the Year of the Peer thing in Virginia. So we kind of had it, mostly done by the time the Faces and Voices asked for their stuff. Today, with a couple of RAP colleagues, we were looking at one for the Drug Policy Alliance conference in Phoenix in October, and a couple of us might submit something to that. But Allison and I have been kind of kicking around this idea of a peer and an ally, a conversation between a peer and an ally. And I think officially, I think it's called something like, building recovery capital, a conversation between a peer and an ally. I wanted to call it a peer and an ally walk into a bar, ... but you wouldn't let me.
You could maybe have one slide that says that to get some laughs in the room.
Yeah, I think when she introduces me, she's gonna say that. So
hell yeah. I mean, because people like to laugh still.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
So before we go any further on the things that you got going on, why don't you just share with the viewers a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself to the audience.
Okay, sure. As a matter of fact, I celebrated an anniversary recently that until 3 days before it, I totally forgot it was happening. So I introduced myself. Let me do the formal introduction. Hey, everybody. It's good to see all of you. My name is Tom Jackson. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a person in long-term recovery. And for me, that means I haven't had the need to use substances since May 13th, 1991. And I also have a couple of co-occurring mental health conditions. And the last time one of those was a serious crisis was in 2009. My day job is as a registered peer specialist at Virginia's Western State Psychiatric Hospital in the scenic Shenandoah Valley, about an hour and 45 minutes west of Richmond, right on Interstate 81, which is known as the Heroin Highway. And for those of you who read or saw Beth Macy's Dope Sick, either the miniseries or the book, it is set up and down the Heroin Highway. But interestingly enough, I'll talk a little bit about, sort of if we talk about some local stuff later. Virginia is sort of a weird place in terms of where we still have a significant meth problem versus where we have an opioid problem. And then my night and at the hospital, I work primarily with people with co-occurring serious mental illness and substance use disorder. I also work on a diversion team, trying to get people with primary substance stuff out of the hospital and into residential treatment as quickly as we can, freeing up desperately needed beds, among other things. And also just, quite frankly, getting people to the right place. As we see more and more meth psychosis, people come to us, and the psychosis clears usually in 3 or 4 days, and then somebody's ready to go on a treatment. And actually, we have quite a bit of state funding to do that, which is a really nice thing to have.
Awesome.
My night job is as an organizer with the Virginia Recovery Advocacy Project, which we call VRAP. And I've been involved with VRAP since 2020. I miss Mobilized Recovery, which, as you mentioned, is our annual convening. I missed the 2019 one, but it wasn't very long after that I got involved with VRAP. So it was 2020 when I started working with the state organizing team, and I'm kind of one of the primary folks right now who tries to organize stuff. We've had a really productive year. We have a 2-year legislative session, or biennium for the fancy term, and this year was our short year. Virginia has to do things differently. Our elections are on odd numbered years, so the entire General Assembly, House and Senate, are up for re-election this year. And so this past January season was a very short one, 45 days. But we did remarkably well. Pretty much everything we supported, with a couple of exceptions, passed. A couple of things got left on the table, which is how, in its own genteel way, Virginia does things. And then the only thing that really, where we got a fast one pulled on us was, and it was not quite the middle of the night, but I think it was after sundown anyway. One of the justice subcommittees passed a bill that was called Weapon of Terrorism. Interestingly enough, well, what the bill was about was making fentanyl a weapon of terrorism in Virginia. But there was nothing in the title of the bill that said fentanyl. So when every advocacy organization was going down the list of, 1,200 bills to look at, nobody caught it. Not a single group caught it. And so nobody showed up to testify because nobody knew about it. It was in the text of the bill, but it wasn't in the title of the bill. Fortunately, we have one state senator from Northern Virginia, shout out to a guy by the name of Scott Suravel, who got the words give and sell removed from the bill. So if you give something to somebody that contains fentanyl, you can't be charged as having possessed a weapon of terrorism. And they restricted it to distribution and manufacture, which is fine. We didn't have any great problem with that. But it is. I shouldn't say that actually, because what we're seeing over and over now is what some of us are calling drug war 2.0. And every chance people get now, it's like, yeah, let's make the penalties worse and let's throw more people in jail. And that sure worked well the first time around.
Right.
And yeah, let's spend 52 years and $1 trillion and end up in worse shape. And then let's take about an 18-month slow tapering off of that, maybe 2-year tapering off of that. And then let's do it again. It worked so well the first time. Let's do it again.
Even though it's like scientifically proven that recovery works, and there's many modalities that people can choose to use.
Totally. I mean, you put 200 people in a room, there's 200 pathways to recovery. And it's our job to to support them. It's interesting you said that. I was thinking about this, and I was a friend of mine who I just finished teaching another peer certification class, and one of my friends who is chief of the rescue squad nearby, and also works in a treatment center. Said, in our own recoveries 5 years ago, 10 years ago, there were 12-step programs and therapy, and that was really it. And then really in the last 5 to 8 years, there's just been this explosion of awareness of more and more pathways to recovery for people. I mean, there've been some. There's Smart Recovery is 26 or 7 years old, I think, but I only came across it in 2017 and got trained as a facilitator then. Stumbled across Refuge Recovery about the same time, and was also did my peer certification training back then too. So I mean, all of those things are things out there for people to take advantage of. And I really struggled, and to some degree always have, with pieces of 12-step programs. I am not a believer, and so that makes it somewhat difficult. But more than anything else, what I find and I hear over and over is not the literature itself, which and not the program itself, but how people interpret it, and how, in particular, and this is something that I struggle with the clients I work with. How many people have been told in 12-step programs that they shouldn't be taking, in some cases, any medication, let alone medication for opioid or some other substance use disorder. I work with most of the clients I work with at the hospital have either schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, schizoaffective disorder, and these are by and large not people that should be told to stop taking their meds.
Right.
Sadly, still there's too many, sort of old school people who believe that.
I agree 100% because I see it all the time, and it's a shame, because if somebody's taking something and it is helping their issues, then what's the harm in that? If their life is improving and it's giving them the chance to really focus on recovery and start digging into the work that they have to do to heal, then what's wrong with that?
Yeah. Right? It's interesting because it's come up in a bunch of, I do one of the things at the hospital that the peer staff is part of the psychosocial rehab team. We have a lot of occupational therapists and recreational therapists and music therapy and stuff like that. And us peer folks are part of that. But as part of that, we do 18 to 20 groups a week, 45 minutes each. And I do about the better part of 12 of them on varying substance related stuff. And the last couple of weeks, all of a sudden, more and more people have been saying, if you take Suboxone, if you take methadone, if you take naltrexone, if you take, almost anything, well, you're just trading one addiction for another. And and sometimes I feel like I get put on the spot with that, because I don't necessarily always have a quick answer, but I've been paying attention to it in the last couple of weeks, and actually, as I think of things, I've been scribbling them down, and they range between the fact that, as far as I know, nobody has ever died from taking Suboxone. As far as I know, nobody has ever died taking methadone as administered at a methadone clinic. That's not true of people who use, in particular, what is now, a totally poisoned drug supply.
Right.
So you are trading. Maybe you are trading one addiction for the other. BFD, you're not dying.
Exactly.
I'll
tell you right now, medical assisted treatment is a legit pathway to recovery.
Absolutely.
Also, harm reduction is another, and that's what you're talking about, right? Like if it's, if you're using a different substance than the one that made your world burn down, and it's not causing you problems like that, well, then I guess that's an improvement in your life, right? Like, I mean, I'm not saying that's my path. I know better for myself. If I touch one thing, then my brain's just going to be like, this ain't what I want,
Oh, I'm 48 hours, I'm down the drain,
Yeah.
And even for me, I mean, one of the big dangers for me, and actually kind of relates to the other addictions thing, is, I mean, smoking for me. If I pick up a cigarette, that for me would be every bit as dangerous as picking up a drink, because one leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. They're all tied together like a string of hot dogs. But what I was going to say is, not only trading one addiction for another, but how many 12-step meetings are there where there aren't a bunch of people out front chain smoking cigarettes and guzzling coffee.
Right.
And those are both psychoactive substances, they are unlikely to, I don't know very many people who've been pulled over for, driving while drinking coffee. Although when I totaled my car a few years ago, it had something to do with putting a Starbucks order in on the app on my phone. So I guess I could say that coffee indirectly caused a car accident, but it was decaf. It was the end of the day. It wasn't even caffeinated coffee. That was fun. Yeah, I was like tap on the phone, and bam, the airbags went off. I didn't even see it happen.
Oh man.
Yeah, I worked out okay, but actually it was funny. There was an off-duty police officer in the car I hit.
Wow.
He was he was with his family, and his mother kept kept telling him to chill, which was sort of funny. But no, I think we all have something that things we're gonna turn to, and one thing that is, and this is something that I've learned fairly recently. The research is fairly new, maybe the last 6 months to a year. Is certainly when I started my recovery, which in fact my anniversary was this past Saturday, and I totally forgot about it until Thursday, and it was 32. So you do a few of them, it's like forget about it. But
still, that's not for you. It's not for you, man.
That's a good point. Thank you.
For the newcomer.
Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, it's a good point. I got told I had already quit smoking before I went to treatment. I'd stopped everything actually before I went to treatment, because there was a 3-week delay between the morning I called for a bed and the day they actually had a bed available. And I said, okay, fine, I'm just going to stop everything. And so I show up in treatment, and they drug screen me, and they say, nobody who shows up here is negative at everything. Everybody's positive or something. Sorry,
That's kind of funny.
Yeah, but these days they'd say, oh, you don't even need to be here. You've been abstinent for 3 weeks. Get out of here. Somebody else needs the bed. But certainly the street wisdom back then, and still significantly, is don't quit smoking, which for many of us is the hardest thing to quit. And the philosophy being, smoking isn't going to kill you today. Drinking can certainly kill you today. Any type of IV drugs can kill you today. Anything that has fentanyl in it can kill you today. And smoking isn't going to kill you today. It might kill you someday. Certainly killed both my parents, but that never got me quitting for years after they both passed from it. But the evidence now, the brain evidence now is that it is significantly harder to quit other drugs while we're still consuming a significant amount of nicotine. That it activates some of the same brain receptors that we are trying to flush out from our substances of choice, and it makes it harder.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's fairly, maybe the last 6 months. There's been a few studies that have come out. But what I feel more sad about than anything else is, we're a state hospital. People can't smoke. They could up until a few years ago, but actually we moved into our new building 10 years ago. And when we did, there was a no smoking building, but the old campus.
So 10 years is a few years.
Well, yeah, thought a few, that
it all blends together.
It all blurs together, right? Exactly.
I feel
but anyway, but I mean, we have people who we've had for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, who haven't had the opportunity to smoke, and the first thing they do is stop at the gas station when they're discharged from the hospital and pick up a pack of cigarettes. And it's like, hey, you haven't had any for 2 or 3 years, and first thing they want to do. And of course, the evidence: people with serious mental illness smoke at least 4 times the rate of the population at large. So anyway, that's sort of a side riff, but so you were talking about conferences. I've sort of turned into speaking of trading addictions, I've turned into something of a conference fanatic, both going to things, finally feeling comfortable enough to propose presenting at them, and so on, and it's been an interesting turn of events. One of the earliest things I did in recovery was force myself at just about every recovery meeting I went to introduce myself, stand up, say, hi, my name's Tom, yada, yada, and I don't really have much to say today, but I'm just practicing raising my hand and sharing. Because I had horrible fear of public speaking and sharing in public and all that kind of stuff. And it really helped, because within 3 years, 4 years, somewhere in there, I was pretty comfortably giving presentations when I was in the computer biz to 200, 300, 400 people without even thinking much about it, and could not have done that sober, certainly, without having done that. I was at McShin Foundation in Richmond a couple of weeks ago. I made a couple of stops that I needed to see in Richmond that I hadn't been there for months, and did the every other week VRAP call from McShin, who of course are great friends and supporters of ours, and involved in the founding of Faces and Voices and RAP and everything. And I was on my way out, and John Schinholzer stuck my head in John's office and said, "Hey, how you doing?" And he said, "Great. He just retired full time. He and Carol both did." And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going home. I'm tired." It was like 10:06. He said, "No, you're not." He said, "You're speaking to our community meeting." And so I said, "Okay, fine. I guess I'm speaking to your community meeting." And I walked into the chapel they use, and there, it's packed. There were like 120 people. And I was like, okay, fine, no problem. Piece of cake. Just stand up, talk about VRAP for 3, 4, or 5 minutes. And, that might be one of the single biggest gifts of my recovery, is the ability to kind of stand up in front of a crowd of people. And number one, have the clarity of thinking to be able to say something. And number two, to have both the confidence and lack of fear to be able to do it. Now that I think about it, that really is one of the single biggest gifts of my recovery, is having gotten over that fear of speaking in public, which is, statistically, the number one or number two fear of almost every human on the planet is public speaking. And I worked pretty hard at it, but it paid off.
Well, I think that tends to be the case when you face down your fear, it shrinks, right? Like,
that's a really good point.
If you're making that choice to be intentional about putting some effort into overcoming something and facing it, it's going to shrink. You're going to overcome it.
That's a really interesting point. We had a conversation yesterday after a presentation at the hospital, and on one of my most cringeworthy words, which is malingering, which is what people who clinical staff accuse people of, using services inappropriately or using services they don't need. And a couple of us were texting back and forth during it. I didn't put something in the Q&A of the presentation, although I kind of wanted to, saying, please, there are better words for it. But I had a great conversation with one of my favorite social workers that refers a lot of people to me for peer support. And I just stuck my head in walking by, and she said, "What did you think of it?" I said, "Well, we were talking about how much of it was about malingering." And she said, "Oh, it drives me crazy whenever anybody says that." She's a big recovery ally, because it's people are trying to meet a need. They're not trying to meet their need helpfully. If your best coping skill is coming to a state psychiatric hospital, you may want to look at learning some other coping skills.
Right.
But what and I said it to somebody else later, and they actually kind of teared up. I said, so many of the people that are accused of that, I think nobody's ever asked them, what do you need? What do you need? And then when you start to tear that apart and you find out, okay, what is it that you're afraid of? Because you're doing this because you're afraid of doing something else. And so how can we help you work through your fear? What support can we provide you to help you move through the fear when your, maladaptive behavior is getting you committed to a state psychiatric hospital. And it sure as hell isn't for the food,
Right.
And so we just kind of toss that back and forth and back and forth. So you want to hear a funny hospital story?
Yeah.
Okay, so we were playing Mental Health Jeopardy in a group a couple of days ago, and I don't remember the exact answer, but it contained the words "these," so it was plural, and compliant, which is another one of those dreaded words that in recovery language we don't use. At best, we talk about adherence and
we all have a problem with being conformist. We're like
they're not
typically
compliant they're not compliant anyway. So he used the word, it was plural, these and compliant, and so we thought the obvious answer was medication. So we hit the button and it says, what is meditation, as opposed to what is medication. And so it was 3 clients, 3 staff in this group that we've done for a year. We all know each other very well. And somebody said, do you mean they're going to start doing meditation over objection here? That we're going to get a judicial order from the magistrate to make people meditate over objection? So so that was a little bit of hospital humor.
Oh yeah.
So you will meditate.
More control.
Yeah. Right. On the floor, downward dog, right now.
That's hilarious. So how did you want to share with, because I found this fascinating. I had Tom on the Way Out podcast, and he shared about how he initially got involved with advocacy. Could you share about that with the audience?
Sure. Yeah. So
wrong guy.
Yeah. So I read Ryan Hampton's first book, American Fix. I think it was 2019. And toward the end of it, he says that the only thing that is going to solve the preventable overdose crisis and just rampant drug use and the misery that accompanies the people who don't overdose, because there's, for every person who overdoses and dies, how many dozens and dozens of miserable people are there? We don't even talk about them much. We just look at the statistics of how many people die. Well, how many people are, just living just painful lives, where drugs are a great answer. If I lived that life, I would be thinking about doing them too, and did. And I had a pretty good life. But anyway, what he said was the only thing that is going to solve this thing is a social movement equal to what we did for HIV/AIDS. In particular, focused on what ACT UP did. And that level of everybody who has anything to do with addiction, mental health, co-occurring situations, those of us who have it, those of us who love people who do, those of us who know people who do, those of us who treat people who do, until every one of us comes out publicly and basically says the equivalent of "me too," and we realize how many tens of millions of us there are, nothing's going to change. Right. And of course, we talk about the S word that I have absolutely. I am no longer using the word stigma. I am now using the words prejudice and discrimination. I've been doing it for a few months, and I asked 3 groups of people last week at the hospital who recognizes the word stigma. Everybody raises their hand in all 3 groups. So probably 25 or 30 people,
right.
Who are the recipients of just about the worst discrimination or stigma, if you want to call it that of anybody around. I said, who knows what it means? Who can define it? One person raised their hand. One person.
Wow.
Now I'm sure there were a few others who were shy and didn't want to raise their hands. So now, people used to toss this word around. Nobody knows what it means. Right. So let's call it what it is. And some of this is stealing from Bill White, the historian of our movement, who a while ago was starting to call it discrimination. I said, well, let's call it both. Let's call it prejudice and discrimination. Yeah. But the only thing that's going to end it is every one of us who has anything to do with it, basically standing up and saying the equivalent of "me too,"
right,
and taking action. And that may be nothing more than signing some of the letter campaigns that VRAP sends out. We send out something every week or two. There's some action we ask people to take. We have about 860 people on our mailing list. And we send something out, and about 35% of the people open the email, which is really good. And maybe 10%, 5 to 10% of them take action, which again is way more than you'd expect, just sort of statistically. And we make it easy for people. We've written a really nice, compelling letter for them to send to whoever the target of the campaign is, and they can edit it if they want, but they don't have
right.
to. They can just sign it and send it off. Our biggest campaign, I think we had something like 2,300 letters to the General Assembly for a bill that was pending. Now that's one letter, for each of the representatives on the and so on. So it wasn't. It's more than it sounds like more than it was, but still, it's a lot of letters to send.
Yeah, I'm
anyway,
sure.
Yeah. I mean, they're all electronic, because nothing shows up, nothing.
But what
those gone are the days where thud, you get that big pile of letters all tied up that impress people. But
that would be crazy,
they
like to
count up
go
the
old
numbers.
school. I can't imagine what it was like doing this before the internet. Because in the 70s, the recovery movement really was getting some real serious traction, right? And I'm sure that was insane. Yeah. And what Tom's talking about as far as Recovery Advocacy Project, you can go to recoveryvoices.com and you can sign up for the email notifications. You can learn more about Recovery Advocacy Project. Their goal is to have a chapter in all 50 states, and I don't think they've quite reached that goal yet, but it will
38, I think 37, 38 out of 50 plus DC. We got a great chapter in DC.
So it will that website will link you up to your local, state. And if there's not an existing one, guess what? You can still sign up and they'll reach out and they'll help you get it rolling.
You can start one.
Exactly. You can do it. And I think, to your point, if we don't stand up, then somebody else might not do it, and that's the thing that, you talked about how it takes all of us, right? Like we all have to be willing to speak up and say me too,
And while you're posting links, the other one, for those of you who are interested in Mobilize Recovery, which is our annual convening of advocates, there's going to be 400 of us in DC September, I want to say 16th, 17th, and 18th, but it could be 17th, 18th, and 19th. MobilizeRecovery.org. We're still accepting applications.
Yep, until June
9th, I think.
Yeah,
6th, 9th, something like that.
MobilizeRecovery.org right there for you folks. I'll be there in DC, bro. You're gonna be there.
I will too. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're good. We're actually. I'm coming in. When are you coming in? Saturday?
Yeah,
or Sunday?
Saturday. Or no, Sunday morning. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Sunday morning. Okay.
So I fly out Sunday morning. Stuff starts in the afternoon, and then there's like the dinner that night, the welcome dinner. And then the actual programming for the conference starts on Monday. I took all the days off. I couldn't afford the bougie hotel they wanted you to. I wish I could have. Well, I mean, no, that's not necessarily true. I could have, but why? I'm like, I don't want to spend $300 a night. But that's where they had the group rate. But I was able to find a place that was much more nominal. It was like $135 a night. And
how far away is it?
It's just a few, like 8 blocks or 6 blocks. It ain't far. And then I'm trying to actually get my reservation changed to a 2-bedroom. And I'm sure it's being a pain in the butt because Priceline's customer service system is stupid.
They have one?
Dude, I know. It's a text line and it's retarded. It doesn't work good. And then you get them on the phone, but it's hard as hell to get them on the phone. And then when I did get them on the phone, they said they were just going to get confirmation about whether or not there's availability from the hotel. And then I waited until the next day, and I called the hotel, and it was the same guy that I talked to that told me, you have to talk to Priceline. And I said, okay, well, I did talk to Priceline, and I think they emailed you to see if there's availability for a 2-bedroom. And then he looks and says, no, I haven't got an email from him yet.
Great.
And he's like, but we do have he says we do have availability though. So now I'm trying to get somebody over there at Priceline to email them so we can get this shit done. Let's go.
Okay. I'm sharing a room with somebody. As much it was originally because I was worried about paying for the whole thing myself. And then I got a little extra to help out. But the person I'm sharing with needed somebody to stay with them. So I'm doing it both for them and for me.
Right.
But
now JR wanted to get a room. That's why I'm trying to change the type of a room. And I was like, hell yeah, dude, we can room up.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm lucky because I mean, I'm kind of disappointed that because again, I was looking forward to I learned as much around the pool at the Westgate 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, as I did in some of the panels and stuff. But I mean, for me, it's a 2 hour and 30 minute drive.
Okay.
And so, and I'm probably even gonna stash my car at one of my friend's parents' houses in McLean, because parking, it's either 49 or 59 a day parking at the hotel.
Why would it be free with the room?
Because they make a ton of money on parking.
Lord.
Even this little conference that we're going to in Richmond, Monday, Tuesday, parking's $36 a day, and that's in Richmond.
Wow.
And because they could get it,
just park like 3 blocks away, Tom, and you can walk there.
Yeah, but still the garages in DC, you're still going to pay $30 a day, and you can't park on the street. So I'm gonna leave my car out there, and I'll take an Uber, or if I want to save money, I'll take the metro in, or I'll just take an Uber in and leave my car there for 4 days, and then go pick it up on the way home.
Well, thanks for the tip, because I was thinking about getting a Turo, so I could just have wheels and go check out.
Not in DC. Do not get a rent a car. Ubers are really cheap. Taxis in DC are notoriously cheap.
Okay.
Because Congress says so, quite frankly. Yeah. And no, taxis, public, and the metro is amazing, and goes everywhere. So no, a car in DC is just horrible, frighteningly expensive.
Well, thank you for the other tip.
Yeah, no, that's definitely
because that was my thinking. I'm like, dude, I want to be able to drive myself around and shit, but I'm not trying to pay that much to park every time I want to park. And like if I go look at a monument, right? Like, what am I going to do? I'm going to stand there and look at the thing for 5 minutes. I don't need to pay a whole ton of money to do that.
The other thing and the other thing around that they have all over the place are these hop on, hop off buses that go between the monuments, where you pay a flat fee, and then you get on it, you go one stop, you get off, you go to the monument, you hop on, go to the next one, and so on.
Cool.
So
I like it.
You can save a boatload of money doing that too. For everybody out there, DC, so you got recovery tips, and you got travel tips anytime you come to DC, and so I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody. The bus tour last year was great, and I got to go to Richmond, where we actually Heather Ogden and I did a panel on co-occurring issues, which is our main thing. And then she and I drove up to her place in Jersey, and got there at like 1 a.m, and then went to that the next afternoon, which is Saturday. Went and met Ross Picardo, who's in Tipping the Pain Scale, and distributed safety kits in Kensington, the Kensington neighborhood in Philadelphia. And then we went to first we went to Unity Taco. This shirt, by the way, that says "I love people who do drugs and I carry Narcan" comes from Unity Recovery in Philly, and they now have a taqueria, a coffee shop, and a phenomenal alcohol-free vegan restaurant. And we went to the coffee place, wasn't open, but we had tacos, and then we went to the bar/restaurant.
Cool.
And then did 2 things in Jersey the next day. Is that right? Yeah. And then went to DC, and then went to New York for the Clinton Global Initiative that a bunch of us went to. That was really, really pretty phenomenal.
Yeah. That looked awesome. Actually, I was, like you said, I was I was a little jealous. I was like, I wish I was there. That looks amazing. Like so many of my friends are there.
Yeah, I wish I had it here. It's downstairs, all over the all the lounges and stuff at the. It was at the New York Hilton. New York Hilton. They had pillowcases that said Clinton Global Initiative, or pillows, that said Clinton Global Initiative. And on the last day, while nobody was looking, I took the pillow out of the pillowcase and I swiped the pillowcase. So I have a pillow on my couch that says Clinton Global Initiative on it. And
Nice.
stuff. But yeah, it was so funny. The funniest thing, I wish I could show pictures. There's a picture of Roz and me with our arms around each other's shoulders in t-shirts and jeans in Kensington in Philadelphia on Sunday, and then Monday morning she is doing Narcan training as part of the first substance use group at the conference, and she's in a dress, I'm in a suit, and so there's a picture of us with our arms around each other. So there's like a before and after. You can take us to the hood, and you can take us to the Hilton, and we could pull off both.
Nice.
It was fun.
Hell yeah, dude. And that's a funny thing too, because I know when I was in my active addiction or whatever, I would have never thought that I belonged in a place like that, but you really do. And I think that our lived experience proves that, and if anything, I mean, it's almost like the more messed up you are out there, the more valuable you are in here, right?
Absolutely. I think that's such a valid and valuable point that that it is our life experience. I'm trying to get rid of the phrase lived experience because I'm convinced it's redundant, and I'm using life experience is my new choice for that. But we use our life experience, but then also all the stuff we learn, and it's both of those things. It's our education and our life experience, to help people. Which that's the one thing that the single biggest, I think, principle takeaway whatever from 12-step programs for me is I keep what I've got by giving it away to other people. And then the other stuff, there's all kinds of ways to clean up my side of the street. There's the 12-step way, and there's a number of others too. I mean, we all have to clean up our side of the street, but there's just many different ways of doing it.
Right.
But when you get to the end of it, the way you keep it, the way I keep it, the way we keep it, is to give it away to other people. Yeah. And that's, I mean, among other things, that's why I do the work I do. I'm a pretty good peer specialist. I'm a really shitty sponsor. I just can't focus on that, that narrow amount of stuff. I just can't do it.
You don't have to though either. Like when I first got sober, it was 12-step, but throughout my recovery, I've continued to learn things and continued to educate myself about different types of recovery and all of these different things, peer support, motivational interviewing, all of this stuff. So, I mean, it's like a mixed bag now, it's, there's pieces of that original stuff in there, but it's a mesh, of a bunch of shit that I learned.
And it changes. I don't do the same stuff today I did 2 years ago. And I didn't do the stuff 2 years ago that I did 4 or 5 years ago. And so on. So,
so is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience before we close it?
Let me think. Whatever you were doing, you out there in YouTube and Facebook Live land, do what you love, find your passion, do what you love. And that's what, for me, that's what recovery is all about. It's about love. It's about connection. It's about passion. It is, my quickest definition of recovery is being the best Tom I can be today. And I heard this great, I'll close with this. People at the I don't know where I heard this. It's not original. I heard it a couple of weeks ago, and I've been passing it around, and it's sort of gathering like wildfire at the hospital. And it says, if on any given day you can only give 40%, and you give 40%, you gave 100%.
Because that's what you could give, right?
That's all you could give that day.
And it's good enough.
It is. It's more than good enough. It's 100. You gave. It's perfect. You gave 100%.
Amen. I always tell people, like, you're not required to be okay to talk to me, man. Right. And then sometimes I have to also tell people the opposite, which is like, you could call me when you're not like fucking in 10-foot flames,
right.
Yeah. Some people I just hear from when they're, shit's falling apart.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I appreciate that they think of me, or, they find my advice and my support that valuable to them. But shit.
There was some
hit me
interview,
up when you're doing good.
There was some video interview decades ago with somebody who was, a sponsor, who, sort of gave this plea of, you could call me once in a while when everything's okay.
Yeah, dude, it's true. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah, right. Just call me up and say, everything's okay.
Right.
Even just, text me, that's the other thing we were talking about, how when I started this, the only technology were phones and answering machines. It wasn't even really voicemail, barely. Work had voicemail. Home didn't have voicemail yet. Work had voicemail, and then I guess I actually did have I had my car phone when I got sober. I already had that, but I did not have a portable phone yet. That was a year or two later. It wasn't quite, it was past dial telephones, it was, it's, there's, I don't know if you've seen it. There's that wonderful cartoon where two cell phones are talking to each other and they're pointing to an old real telephone. And it said, look, once upon a time we had tails.
The cord. I remember we had like the fucking 20-foot one in my mom's house. Yeah. So I could walk it down the hall into my room, shut the door.
Yep.
Slide the cord under the door.
And you used to have to pay, way back, you used to have to pay the phone company every month for an extra long cord. When I had my first phone in college and my first apartment, if you wanted a long cord, it cost extra and you paid for it every month. And of course, you can imagine how much the phone company, no wonder everybody hated the phone company.
Wow. Dude, for all you youngsters out there listening to this shit.
Listen to these old farts.
Actually, super weird.
It's interesting. One of the things I did, I guess it was before last time we met, but I'm also now a certified older adult peer specialist and trainer, which is an interesting program for peer support for people 50 and older. And it comes out of University of Pennsylvania. And there's some really interesting sort of different stuff about that. But for those of us who are well over 50, it's what is it? It's 9:09 here.
Little different. It's a little different.
You know, it's 9 minutes. No, it's not 9 minutes past my bedtime. It feels like it should be 9 minutes past my bedtime.
Dude, it's here. It's 8:09. My bedtime's in 20 minutes, bro.
Yeah, is it?
But I get up at like 3:30 sometimes.
Ooh.
But yeah,
I put dinner in the oven before we started, so
this is an important thing in my life, and it means a lot to me to be able to do it. And I really appreciate you coming on the show. I do apologize on behalf of LC and Ashley and JR that they weren't able to make it tonight. Brett, you were like,
I'm here.
You were silent.
Here. It's like we emailed a few times, but
you just got home.
I just got home. I'm sitting here next to the baby.
What a pimp.
Wow. Can you show us or not? Or
he could.
Sure. Did you say hi?
It's black screen though.
Is it not showing?
It's a black screen.
Oh, I see it on my end.
You're
weird. Nope.
Nothing,
bro. No. Well, we know your baby's cute.
I'm sure.
Well, that was an epic fail.
I didn't know.
There it is.
There, just for a second. There you go.
Oh.
Hi. Can you say hi? Can you say hi? Oh no! Don't she hit in the broadcast. Don't in the broadcast.
She hit it. That's funny. Yeah, maybe don't show us the baby then. Let me end it the right way. Or I mean, I'll try. I'm no Brett Morris, but we'll start closing it out here. But thanks again, Tom, for joining us tonight.
Oh, thanks for
thank you, Tom.
For those of you out there, if you
love doing this, then
absolutely right. But if you guys want to learn more about the Recovery Advocacy Project, go to recoveryvoices.com right there on your screen, and that will get you all the information you need, and you even can sign up and maybe start your own chapter in your own state. And then mobilizerecovery.org if you're interested in that Mobilize Recovery conference that's going on. Also, he talked about Faces and Voices of Recovery, so I'll throw that up there. Faces and Voices of Recovery is a great organization.
It is.
And you know, that's Bill White you were talking about. They're really great. So all good things to look into if you're interested in that. Let's see here. I'm going to go check like that. I'm going to turn on this. So we're going to start the outro. It's going to be cool.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for being here, brother. And you guys out there, let's see. Thanks for watching. You can go to recovery-revolution.org/live to find us on that website, or you can go to YouTube, look up Recovery Revolution Live, or we're on Facebook, Recovery Revolution Live. And there's also the Recovery Revolution group, which is an online recovery community, which is really awesome. Brett, you got a podcast, don't you?
I do have a podcast, and I'm currently taking a little bit of a break from it, but I'm going to have some new episodes coming out. Probably in the next week or two, but I do what has been coined by Charlie from the Way Out podcast as Morsels of Recovery. I do about 30-minute episodes once a week with different guests. We talk about recovery, mental health, all kinds of different stuff. So check that out wherever you find podcasts.
Yeah. And I also do another show called the Way Out Podcast with the other host, Charles Lavore. We do switch hit interviews, so we're unique in that way. And you will very rarely hear us on the same shows, but we do them together on occasion. We just share powerful recovery stories and unpack recovery power topics to help you find or sustain or jumpstart your own recovery. And then LC has the Recovery Soul Food podcast, and he's also on all the main platforms. And then if you have a podcast and you want to join a network of people, there's no charge to do this. Look up Recovery Revolution Podcast Network or contact myself or Brett Morris. We will definitely get you hooked up, get you on. There's a website. Yeah, we feature all sorts of different podcasts on there. I'm not sure. What are we up to now, Brett?
Oh, man, I can't even remember. It's
30-something?
Yeah, 30 some odd shows.
Yeah, so you'll be able to access their content, and it's just like a hub for good recovery content for you out there who need good recovery content.
I may have to look at that because 2 people are here. My supervisor at work in particular tells me that I have to do a podcast. Like,
well, there you go.
It's easier to be a guest than a host.
It's true because it's a commitment, right?
That's true.
But anyway, Brett always says, remember, progress, not perfection. You guys take care and have a good one.